So for this, I want to read a halacha in the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch. The Alter Rebbe says in Hilchos Siman Tofreish Chof Tes Sif Yud Aleph that ein mechazkin ve'ein ma'amidin es haschach lechatchila b'chol davar sheloi lekabel tuma. You're not allowed to put something to hold the schach in place or to keep the schach from flying away with something that's able to become tummy, able to be kabel tuma. What's the reason for this? If you're going to use things to hold the schach in place, either to hold up the schach or to keep the schach from flying away, if you're going to use things that are mekabel tumah, you might use that for schach. So, for example, what's mekabel tumah? Metal poles are mekabel tumah. Metal poles are mekabel tumah. So, if you're going to want to put the schach on top of metal poles, that's what you hold up the schach on the sukkah. You're not supposed to do that. Same thing, if you're going to want to put metal poles on top of the schach to hold it, that it shouldn't fly away. So you shouldn't do that either, because it's mekabel tumah. Now, this is common. There are various types of sukkahs that the frame is made with metal poles, metal pieces. The frame is made with metal pieces. So the top of the sukkah are metal pieces. Top of the frame is metal pieces. So therefore, if you have a sukkah that the top of the frame is metal pieces, so you shouldn't put the schach directly on the walls, because the top of the walls are metal pieces. And this is called ma'amid es haschach b'dover hamekabel tum. And l'chatchila, you're not supposed to do that. The Alter Rebbe says, this is only l'chatchila. Avol b'di'eved shekvar hemid es haschach b'dover hamekabel tum. But what if you did? What if you did put the schach on top of metal poles? So b'di'eved, if you did, the sukkah is kosher. Mutter leishiv bo. You're allowed to sit in the sukkah. The sukkah is kosher. So the halacha is that when you're coming to make the sukkah, do it right. Halacha tells you, do it right. Don't put the schach on top of something that's mekabel tumah. But if you did, it doesn't make the sukkah possible. The sukkah is still kosher. So again, this is known as ma'amid b'dover hamekabel tumah. The Alter Rebbe makes it very clear that this is something to be careful l'chatchila, or if it was done, this sukkah is nevertheless kosher.
The pasuk talk about aluminum this together with metal?
I don't know. I think it is, but okay. So let's go back to the point that. So what comes out here is that when you want to put something to hold up the schach or put on top of the schach to keep the schach from blowing away, it shouldn't be something that's possible for schach. That's the point. It shouldn't be something that's possible for schach. L'chatchila, when you're making a sukkah, you should see to it that you're not supporting the schach or holding the schach in its place with something that's possible to be used for schach. So therefore, when people, all these sukkahs that have metal frame on the top, so what they do is they put wooden beams on top of the frame. They put the schach on top of the wooden beams. The schach lies on the wooden beams, not on the metal frame. Wooden beams are kosher for schach. So, regular 2x2s, wooden beams or 2x4s, whatever it is. Regular wooden beams are kosher for schach. It's wood. Rose from the ground. It's not a keli. It's pshutei creates simple, straight beams of wood. It's not mekabel tumah. So that's one of the benefits that you do that. That's why you see in many sukkahs that on top of the metal frames there's wooden beams. You put the schach on top of the wooden beams. Now, just bring to your attention that some say that you should be careful how to do it. And that means that if you're going to put the wooden beams on top of the metal frames, and you put the schach on top of the wooden beams, if you're putting bamboo sticks, for example, you should put the bamboo sticks the opposite way that the beams are. The beams are going this way, and you should put the bamboos that way on top of the beams. The beams shouldn't go in the same direction that the bamboos shouldn't go in the same direction where the beams are. Usually it's done this way. That's the way I'm saying. The beams go, let's say, in the length of the sukkah, and the bamboos go on the width of the sukkah on top of the beams. So that way, the beams are supporting the schach. Because if you're going to do it the other way, that the beams are going to go on top of the metal in one direction, and the schach is going to go on top of the beams in the same direction, then you could still say that really it's still being supported by the metal that's under the beams. The beams is not really helping anything. The beams is not adding support. It's just chatzitza, so to say, just mafsik between the schach and the metal frame. So some place can say that it's better that it should be in a situation where the beams are actually supporting the schach. The schach need the beams to be supported. So then it's not considered that the metal frame is holding up the schach. Rather, it's the beams that are holding up the schach. Obviously, the metal frame is holding up the beams, but that's okay. The beams are holding up the schach. The metal frame is holding up the beams. Some say to be careful to do it this way, but derech klal, it's done this way. Derech klal, it's done this way. Just pointing out. Now, if you want to tie this schach, let's say you have schach, you're concerned that it shouldn't blow away. So if you have light schach and you're concerned that it shouldn't blow away, what should you do? What should you put on top of the schach? Prevent it from blowing away. So you could put on top of the schach beams that are heavy. Now beams are heavy, and they put a few beams on top of the schach. You keep the schach from blowing away. You could put a heavy branch from a tree on top of the light schach that might blow away. But what if you want to tie the schach? If you want to tie the schach to the sukkah, tie the schach to the sukkah that it shouldn't blow away. So then, if you're going to tie the schach with something that's kosher for schach, it's for sure okay. For sure okay to tie the schach with something that's kosher for schach. So it happens to be that some of the mats that they sell have strings attached that come out of the mat that are kosher. Those strings are made that are kosher for schach. The strings are something that grows from the ground. It's not a keli. It's not a kabel tumah. It's kosher for schach. It's made from material that grows from the ground. So again, some of the mats that you buy, they come with strings that hang out from the ends, and they're made that you can tie it to the edges of the sukkah. The screws that stick out of the sukkah, whatever it is, you can tie it to keep the schach down. But what if you want to use some kind of string that doesn't grow from the ground, a synthetic string, whatever? That's not kosher for schach. So what could be the issue if you do that? If you tie the schach with string that's not kosher for schach, could be the issue. The issue could be that maybe that's considered ma'amid b'dover makabel tumah. Then lechatchila you're not supposed to do that. In other words, if without tying down the schach is going to blow away with a common wind. If it's very light schach that's going to blow away with a common wind, and then you want to tie it up with string that's not kosher for schach, so that's considered that you're supporting the schach, you're holding the schach in its place with something that's makabel tumah. So you should be careful not to do this lechatchila. It's not the right way to do this schach. However, I want to emphasize that most schach is not so light that will fly away in a common wind. Most schach is going to stay where it is in the common wind. Even the mats, most of them are going to stay where it is in the common wind. Strong wind, you can be concerned about. You're concerned that a strong wind will blow it away.
Some years it happens. Right?
Yeah, strong wind comes and blows it away. So that's not really a problem. It's not really a problem if it's only a strong wind will come blow it away. Because schach doesn't have to be able to withstand the ruach she'eina mitzuyah. As long as it can withstand the ruach mitzuya, it's considered schach. So right? No. So if so, then it could be that you could even tie the schach with string that's not kosher for schach.
You're saying it's not considered mine?
Yeah, it's not considered maimed. If you just want to prevent the schach from blowing away with the ruach she'eina mitzuya, then make it halacha. It's not considered maimed because schach has to be able to stand in the ruach mitzuya. So, therefore, it's not going to be a problem if the schach is tied with string that's not kosher to be schach. When the schach is strong enough to withstand a common wind, you just want to prevent it from blowing away with a ruach she'eina mitzuya. The question would only be, what do you do b'shas at the time that there is a ruach she'eina mitzuya blowing? If it's unusual weather, there is a ruach she'eina mitzuya blowing. You want to sit in the sukkah at that time. So now, in this situation, it has to come on to the string that's holding it. So, okay, so the question is, should you avoid l'chatchila making the sukkah in such a way because of this possible time that there might be a ruach she'eina mitzuya, and then you'll be sitting in the sukkah. So it might still be an Indian to avoid doing it. You get what I'm saying?
Just don't sit in the sukkah.
You could say, don't sit in the sukkah then. Okay, fine, yeah.
What type of string is considered kosher schach?
Say, don't sit in the sukkah, string that grows from the ground. The string is made from material that grows from the ground. Yeah, many places can hold that. It's still okay.
So that string that comes in the ground string. Rough.
I don't know what it's made from. If it's made from cotton, then it grows from the ground. But if it's made from something synthetic, I don't know what it's made from.
Some mats are tied with fishing. Those shares, it's okay.
Yeah, the reason why they do that is because they feel that the mat will stand without the strings that it holds it together. The mat is heavy enough that it's going to withstand the ruach mitzuya without the string. The string is just made to make it neat. The string is made to make it neat and convenient. So therefore, some mats come that are made with string that's not kosher for schach. What connects the pieces of the mat together? String that's not kosher for schach. Again, that's based on the fact that this type of mat is not meant to, there's no concern that's going to blow away in the ruach mitzuya. So if there's no concern it's going to blow away in the ruach mitzuya, so then the string is not holding the mat in its place. It's just making it neat and easier to deal with.
What about putting a beam on top?
So that you could do. You could put a beam on top. Definitely, you could put a beam on top. Beam is.
It's not a keli. It's
not a keli. A beam is not a keli. A beam is called a pshutikliya. Not a.
What about the leaves itself? What are the leaves that you put on the schach? What if they go out? They can fly away the ruach mitzuya.
Generally they don't. Generally they're heavy. Generally they don't fly away with ruach mitzuya. That a klal doesn't happen. Okay. Anyway.
Here in New York, but in Atlantic City, the Charles Clay by the ocean, very big windstorm they knew was coming 3 years ago. And what they did was, I don't know if you show them the eyes with, but they sandwiched the mats between beams and they tied the beams together. So they didn't actually, they didn't tie to the schach mamish, but the schach was sandwiched between 2 beams, which were tied together.
Right. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. Right. No, they made like a pocket between the 2 beams,
yeah.
And the schach was stuck in under the.
It was part of plastic string though, but it wasn't touching the schach.
Right. Yeah. Okay. One more point I'll mention about the schach. That is, if you have a light fixture in the sukkah, light fixture coming down from the schach in the middle of the sukkah, is there an issue to sit under the light fixture? Let's say it's a very big light fixture. It's coming down from the sukkah. Is there an issue if your seat is going to be under the light fixture?
Or a fan. A fan.
Ceiling fan. Yeah, so basically the halacha is that a light fixture, ceiling fan I'm not sure, but a light fixture is called noise sukkah. It decorates the sukkah, it makes the sukkah nicer. It gives light to the sukkah, makes the sukkah nicer. If there's no sukkah, it's not choitzitz. It's not considered a chatzitza, but that's only if it doesn't hang down more than 4 tefachim from the ceiling, from the schach. It doesn't hang down more than 4 tefachim from the schach. It's like bottled to the schach. Since it's the noi, it makes the sukkah nice. Noi sukkah, so it's bottled to the schach. So if it doesn't hang down more than 4 tefachim, it's bottled to the schach, it's not a problem. If it hangs down more than 4 tefachim, then as long as it's not 4 tefachim wide, it's not a problem to sit under it. But if it's 4 tefachim wide, then it's already a concern.
And you think it's more comfortable.
And I'm not sure if that's considered noise sukkah. It could be, it helps you, sukkah maybe helps you, it makes it more comfortable. Maybe it's the same here that I'm not sure.
And the light structure is because it's necessary or because of the way it's designed? Yeah.
A light fixture, it's considered noise sukkah. Why? Because that gives light. Light makes the sukkah nicer, makes the sukkah more beautiful.
Not because of the way you design it.
No, not the design of the light.
Some people have
The fact that it gives light to the sukkah, that's what makes the sukkah nice.
It's a mini Chabad and
True, but the light is an automatic category of light. Yeah, it's considered bottled to the schach.
If it's within 4 tefachim of the schach and more than 4 tefachim wide,
Doesn't matter. Still bottled. Yeah. Okay. Another point to know about the schach is Shulchan Aruch says it's interesting the way the Tafresh Chavav, the Mechaber begins. You make your sukkah under the tree. Schach is under a tree comes over the schach. So then there's a whole bunch of conditions to know when is it an issue. If you have a tree directly over the schach, tree that comes up, branches of a tree that come out of the tree and go directly over the schach. What's the din? What's the story? The Mishnah says, if your sukkah is directly under a tree, it's as if it's in the house. It's not kosher. The sukkah has to be under the Abir Hashemayim, the sky, under the sky. It can't be under a tree. But what do you do if it is under a tree? The question is, how much of the area of the schach is covered with the branches of the tree? And there's a whole list of conditions. But the Ramah gives an introduction to this and says, Ein la sukkah tachas bayis. Don't make a sukkah under a house, obviously, or under a tree either. In other words, l'chatchila, you're not supposed to make a sukkah under a tree at all. If it is under a tree, then there's a question, is it kosher or possible? So that depends in many details. But l'chatchila, in making a sukkah, don't make the sukkah under the tree. Try to be careful that the sukkah should not be under the tree. So whenever you're making a sukkah, try to be careful that there should not be any branches that go over the sukkah. If there are, try to cut them down. Try to see to it that the branches should not be over the sukkah. If it's not if you can't avoid it, and you have a situation where there is branches over the sukkah, you can't avoid it, then there are many details, and then you speak to a Rav to see if this is okay in that situation. But when you build a sukkah, you do whatever you could to see to it that the sukkah should not be under a tree at all.
what's the main idea? Because the tail is coming from the tree.
Yes. The tail is coming from the tree, and therefore it's as if the schach that's under it doesn't exist.
If it would be one branch, it wouldn't be an issue.
It would be a small amount that even if you would take away the schach of the sukkah that's directly under it, there would still be enough schach on the sukkah. Then usually it's kosher. Correct.
Like the schach doesn't exist, or it's like a regular roof is there.
No, it's as if this doesn't exist.
if the tree is dead,
Same thing. If it has branches going over the sukkah,
Does that area in which you does that there's some schach possible? How it's considered?
It's a shaila. If it's mamish like schach possible, a little different.
Or you think that-
I mean, the schach that's on the sukkah is considered like that's directly under the tree is considered like schach possible.
Oh, so that's not on that one you can't use for the rest. Okay.
Yeah, true.
It's missing it. That's a problem. Yeah.
Okay, so there are many details. I'm not going to get into the details because what you have to know is that when you build a sukkah, see to it that it shouldn't be under the tree. Ain't lasi sukkah tachasi.
If it's a small area covered by air conditioner, which is way above super, it's just enough to make sure that nobody's sitting on it.
Correct. That's correct. Yeah, you have an air conditioner coming out over the sukkah, so that area under the air conditioner, no one should sit there. That's right.
Or maybe even less than 4
Yeah, ladies can sit even less than 4 tefachim. Yeah, because whatever is right directly under it is like it's not there.
It's not noise sukkah. It's not.
It's not noise sukkah, correct? It's not noise sukkah.
Schach from another sukkah over your sukkah.
Again, what?
It's like 2 sukkahs on different levels, but schach of this sukkah is above your schach. But it's the sukkah, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's a problem. The schach of the sukkah that's near you goes out, that comes over your sukkah, that's fine. It's fine. It's kosher is schach, so it doesn't disturb, it doesn't interrupt your sukkah. It doesn't bother your sukkah. If you have, could be telephone wires that are going in the air, or any type of wires that go over the sukkah. So one loose wire, is not a problem. One wire that goes over the sukkah is very thin. It's not a problem. It's not an issue. If you have a couple of wires near each other that are going over the sukkah, so if there's less than 3 tefachim between one wire and the next, then it could be a shaila. That's a shaila. Yeah, it could be a Saint Loveland. You have less than 3 tefachim between one wire and the next. But if you have a lot of space, you have one wire here, and more than 3 tefachim away there's another wire, more than 3 tefachim away another wire, those wires don't bother the sukkah at all. Just a skinny little wire. Then you have 3 tefachim, more than 3 tefachim, there's another wire, and more than 3 tefachim, another wire. These little skinny wires don't bother the sukkah.
How wide does that be found?
It has to be quite a 3 tefachim. 3 tefachim, or if it's a shed, maybe even if it's a tefach, could be as a shayla. Maybe even if it's a tefach, could be a shayla. Okay, I'm saying sometimes it can be common that you have wires. What else could be? Usually you don't have the wide things that are on top of this. You can have sometimes a wire that goes over, so that's not an issue. And let's go speak about the fanois hasuk, walls of the sukkah. So everyone knows that there's many different types of walls that are used for the sukkah. And the question is, what could you use material? They call canvas. Material for the walls. In other words, does the wall have to be a solid wall? Or is material that's not solid, it's not something solid, you can move it. Is that also kosher to be a wall for the sukkah? So there's a siman in Shulchan Aruch, siman Tov Reish Lamed. Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch is missing. Regular Shulchan Aruch in siman Tov Reish Lamed Sif Yud. Speaks about if you want to use bushes or trees for the walls of the sukkah. You have a nice area that's surrounded by trees, You want to use the trees as mechitzas, the walls of the sukkah. What's the halacha? It says, Im hayu chazokim, if they were solid, oy shekoshar oysam v'chizek oysam, ad sheloi tehei haruach mitzuya menida oysam. So if you did something to make sure, sheloi tonid oysam haruach, you tie it very strongly, and the wind can't budge it, can't move it, then it's kosher. What it says in Shulchan Aruch. You have to tie it very well that the wind can't move it. So then the Shulchan Aruch says, Al kain therefore, ein nochoin lasois kol hamechitzois miyiriyos shel pishton. It's not proper to make all the walls from cloth. Afal pisha koshron b'toy, even though you tied it very well, and it's not going to move. Why? Because zimnin de mintiki v'lava daite. Because maybe you tied it very well, maybe it's going to get loose. And you won't realize. And then it's going to start moving when the wind blows. And then it's going to be a mechitza she'ena yochelu lamed b'fnei ruach mitzuya. If a common wind blows, it moves from its place, then it's going to be an issue. We see also the Alter Rebbe in Hilchos Shabbos. The Alter Rebbe says about the halachas of a lechi, when you have to put a pole in certain areas. So if a ruach mitzuya yochel lahanidoi, if a common wind could move it, it's not considered a lechi. Why not? Shahalechi hu kemechitza, v'chol mechitza sheruach mitzuya minidosa eina mechitza. Any mechitza that a common wind can move it, it's not called a mechitza. It means something that stands solid even when a common wind blows. So the Shulchan Aruch here in Hilchos Sukkah seems to say that if you tie it well and it's not going to move, then it will be fine. But still, it's not proper to do it because it might get loose and you won't realize. So what does the Mechaber say? It says, if someone wants to make a sukkah with material, canvas, what we call canvas material, sadinim, sheets, like sheets. Toiv, it's a good thing that what should you do? Good that you should put inside the material walls sticks within three tefachim from the other one. Sticks that are 10 tefachim high, or sticks that are 10 tefachim high all along the walls, and there should be less than 3 tefachim between each stick and the next. So that creates another type of mechitza made out of sticks that are pachas begimel. So if you have a combination of both, then the Shulchan Aruch says it's okay to do this. So let's say, so what I want to say is this. So let's say we assume that if you make a sukkah out of material, canvas, whatever, as long as you could see that when the wind blows, common wind blows, it shakes a little bit back and forth, shakes a little, doesn't stand firm. Let's assume that that's not okay. But Mechaber says that Eitzah is to put things, pachas megimel, that will not blow in the wind. Those will stand sturdy even in a common wind. So that explains the reason why today many companies that make sukkahs and they make canvas sukkahs, they make it in such a way that they give you strong rope that comes with it, and they put inside the sukkah, there's like loops, there's areas where you tie around from the poles of the sukkah, tie around. Yeah, like this. You tie around it's hard to see it, pass it around. You tie around ropes around from the floor till 10 tefachim high, there's 4 ropes, and it's less than 3 tefachim from one to the next. So therefore, you have in addition to the material, you also have these ropes that are solid. They're very tight, very tightly tied all around. So that doesn't move in the Ruach Mitzuya. So therefore, that's what they do to accomplish that it should be like the Shulchan Aruch says.
The Chaim's Eitzah is to put sticks horizontal, not vertical.
Because that's what they do. They put vertical.
No. Yeah, it doesn't matter which way. It doesn't matter which way. if you put sticks, you're going to put it straight down because it's easier, but you do it the other way.
It's easier.
Of course it's easier, right? It makes no difference.
They do some sukkahs,
Right. The halacha, pachas begimel doesn't make a difference if it's horizontal or vertical.
So you're supposed to have 10 of them throughout the land. To have one goal.
Yeah. That's what they do because that's more practical. That's right. It's more practical, but it's the same accomplishment.
Is this a road that has to be tight, really tight?
It has to be tight enough that a common wind doesn't blow it. It doesn't move in a common wind. It won't move in a common. Tight enough around the pole.
But actually canvas is outside and this road goes inside.
That's right.
So it's prevent the canvas bounce.
Okay, it doesn't bounce too much, correct? But anyway, the point of these ropes that go all around is that those don't move in a common wind. And therefore you're doing the way it says in Shulchan Aruch is the best way to do it. Toiv, this is the best way to do it. So I'm going to say that you do see canvas sukkahs that don't have these ropes. And still a number of years ago, all the canvas sukkahs didn't have these ropes. People were using canvas sukkahs. So that's based on a shita in Poiskim that holds that even if the material walls move a little bit, it's not a problem. When the Shulchan Aruch says that it shouldn't move in a common wind, it means if it moves in a way that it's going to puzzle the wall. It means if it moves 3 tefachim away from its place, because the wall has to be within 3 tefachim close to the schach. And if the wind is going to blow the wall 3 tefachim away from the schach, then it's not a good mechitza. Or if it's going to pick up the bottom of the mechitza and it won't be 10 tefachim, there's a sheet in the poskim that hold that this is what it means, that if the wind blows it, it's not good. It doesn't mean if it shakes a little bit. It means if it shakes in a way that it becomes ois, kosher the wall. Then it's a problem even when it stands in its place. Because so if when the common wind blows, it's going to go 3 tefachim away from its place, then even when the wind is not blowing and it's standing straight, it's not a good mechitza. But if
the bottom 10 tefachim,
bottom 10 tefachim, that's right. The bottom 10 tefachim.
a lot, before tefachim, but the bottom
That's
part.
right. The bottom 10 tefachim, that's what counts. Bottom 10 tefachim of the wall, that's what counts. So if the bottom 10 tefachim are not going to move more than 3 tefachim out of the way, then it's okay. So there are places that hold this way, and therefore people rely on that, and they have canvas sukkahs even without the straps. But it's definitely a hiddur. The Alter Rebbe doesn't say. He just says that kol mechitza sheruach metzuya min nidasa eina mechitza. If a common wind blows it, it's not called a mechitza. It doesn't say how much it has to blow it. It's definitely a hiddur not to rely on that. So again, some places can hold that that's enough. That's what people rely on. But it's definitely a hiddur. What? Lav dafka, I don't know. It's not about just
it sounds like he's saying it's nothing at all.
Yeah, right. Sounds like he's saying that blows it at all. It's not a mechitza. So therefore, you don't want to take a chance to have just a plain canvas sukkah without the ropes. So at least that's what you should have. At least you should have the canvas sukkah that has the ropes. That the ropes keep it. The ropes at least are solid, and it could be the ropes help that bottom 10 tefachim of the wall won't budge too much. Even though it's hard to say that it won't budge at all. Usually in a common wind, it's hard to say that it won't budge at all. But Al Kaponim will stay very more or less will stay in its place. But then you have the ropes that support it, and the ropes will stay in their place. They won't budge in the common wind. But again, obviously, many people want to be mahadid and they want to have solid walls for a sukkah. They don't want to rely on the canvas. They'd rather have solid walls made out of wood or fiberglass, the different types of materials today. It's good to have a solid wall if it's possible. That's the preferable type of sukkah, seemingly. But again, if you want to have a canvas one, the Shulchan Aruch said, and then it would be okay. That's what it says in the Shulchan Aruch. So you could rely on that if you have to, if you want to have that type of sukkah. But again, if you want to arrange to have a canvas sukkah, but you're going to make solid mechitzas just for the bottom 10 tefachim, that's fine. That's fine. Because the sheet of a mechitza of a sukkah is 10 tefachim. You could have a regular big canvas sukkah, but you're going to make sure that the bottom 10 tefachim have a solid wall. Whatever you're going to use, you could buy different type of materials, different options that you can make a low mechitza of 10 tefachim all around. Yeah. Okay, you're talking about the ropes? Okay, well, the Mishnah Bruder says, "Abel mechitza revius lekuli alma yochelasis miyariyos keep the medinas hagi begin." The Bruder says that the fourth one, everybody agrees you can make it from cloth because Menadin, it's about 3 walls, so I know the 3 walls are okay. The fourth will for sure be only from, that's what Mishnah Bruder says. So it's something to rely on if someone wants to.
How high is 10 tefachim?
10 tefachim is 80 centimeters, approximately 32 inches. Approximately 32 inches.
I'm talking with good acid,
Because of good asik, yeah.
so it has to be, over it.
It has to be over it or within 3 tefachim of it. Yeah, but usually if you put it inside, if you put it
on top, 3 tefachim from on top or 3 tefachim from on bottom. That means if the walls are much higher, the staff is much higher than the 10. The above it has to be Isla or has to be.
yeah, the walls of 10 tefachim should be under the schach. You should make sure that it's under the schach. Correct, yeah.
A bird's eye view, it should all match.
Again, if you can put these 10 tefachim walls inside the sukkah, then it will be definitely under the schach. Okay, let's just talk about some practical things to be careful in the sukkah. Regarding the place that you make the sukkah, the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch says that you shouldn't make a sukkah in the karka shel rabbim. You should make a sukkah in a public property. That's what the Alter Rebbe says. You shouldn't make a sukkah in public property. And if you did, the Alter Rebbe says you shouldn't make a bracha in such a sukkah, and you should prevent people from making sukkahs in the Rishus HaRabim. So what does it mean, sukkah in the Rishus HaRabim? So some place can say that the sidewalk that's in front of your house, that's not called Rishus HaRabim. That's in your responsibility, since you have to shovel the snow there and other things. The sidewalk that's in front of your house, up until Dalet Amis, out of your property into the sidewalk, is considered your Rishus. Some place can say that that's not called Karka Rishus HaRabim. Karka Rishus HaRabim would be on the street, basically. So that's a heter for those who have to make a sukkah on the sidewalk in front of the house.
Even if it's a place where it's illegal, you're going to take it?
What?
Even if it's a place where it's illegal, you're going to take it from the sidewalk after you came off in your lap.
Some say that it's okay. So I'm just pointing out that it was chus on those who do it. But generally, you should be careful not to make a sukkah on the sidewalk or in the street. If there's no choice, okay. The way the Alter Rebbe puts it in Shulchan Aruch is that you shouldn't make a sukkah Rishus HaRabim no matter what. The Mishnah Bruder, by the way, brings many places to say that it's okay as long as the city doesn't protest. Then it means that they don't mind because it's just there for a few days, and then it's okay to make a sukkah in the street. The Mishnah Bruder brings from many places. So people will have to rely on this. But But Al Rebbe puts it in Shulchan Aruch. It seems that you should try to avoid making a sukkah in public property. It should be only on your property, not even on the sidewalk, if possible. Yeah, yoytza. If you eat there, yoytza, right? If you eat there, yoytza, but you shouldn't make a bracha. You shouldn't make a bracha.
What about on a truck that's not?
You have your shoes to park your truck on the street. So if you make it on the truck, it's fine. Just like you're allowed to keep your truck there. Sukkah is on your truck. It's not on the property. The truck is allowed to be on the property. That would be fine. Okay.
Double park.
Yeah. To be careful in the sukkah itself, if you have grass on the floor of the sukkah, then there's an issue on Shabbos and Yom Tov that you shouldn't pour water on the grass. The Alter Rebbe says in Hilchos Shabbos that it's good not to eat on grass at all on Shabbos and Yom Tov if you're going to use water there. So therefore, if you have grass in your sukkah floor, it's advisable to put a floor over the grass. It's advisable to put a floor over the grass. Rabbi Shmuel Chaim Bluming told me that in Home Depot you can get 4x8 pieces of wood that cost only $7. Look into it. Recycled wood. Yeah. So whatever, if you have grass on your sukkah floor, it's kedai, it's kedai to get a floor on top of it. So you shouldn't be using water over grass on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Also, when you wash, if you're washing outside of the sukkah, you should be careful that you shouldn't wash over the grass, Shabbos and Yom Tov. Also, if you have a sukkah outside, you have to be careful to have an eruv regarding Shabbos. Also, it's proper to bench licht in the sukkah. And it's good to know that you can get some kind of glass cases where you can put the naders in, that even if it rains, it will be protected. Also, of course, you should know that, probably everybody knows that you don't bring a garbage can into the sukkah. It says in Shulchan Aruch that even when you finish eating, you're not supposed to leave the dirty plates in the sukkah. So a kolshkein that you're not supposed to bring a garbage can into the sukkah. And if you have a garbage can right outside the sukkah, and put the things in the garbage, but don't bring the garbage can into the sukkah. You could do in the sukkah, yeah. That's fine. It's water, it's not dirty. It's just water, it's not dirty. Okay, anyway, it's already Shlish Mekayim Achag, and we're getting much closer than that. And the sukkah is Mansim Chaseinu, and it should be a Freiliche Yor for the whole Klal Yisrael. Big Simcha with Mashiach Keinu with Chorib Man.
Can we do questions after Meir?
Yes.
Okay.